Goff works out of the gun. There's the snap. Jared back. Jared looking, throws. Enzo caught. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I see you. Boy, have we seen one heck of a performance. They start this fourth quarter leading 38-14. Goff back off looking left side. Once Amon-Ra got him. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Goff to Amon-Ra, second of the day. Goff takes the snap, fakes the give, rolls right, got a man wide open. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 1, 2, 3 times today. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Amon-Ra St. Brown will go on to have a couple more multiple touchdown games in the 2025 season. There he is at work ahead of the 2026 season as the veterans report to training camp for the Detroit Lions on July 28th, giving Amon-Ra some time to do things like spend time on our show as Amon-Ra St. Brown joins us now on the Insiders. Amon-Ra, thanks for spending time with us today. Tell us about this offseason with a few changes on the way in Detroit.
Yeah, it's been good. Spending OTAs with, Drew, new OC. We got some new pieces on offense. So OTAs is fun to hang out with the guy, be around the guys again, have that hunger again. I feel like a lot of us are motivated off what happened last year. So we're excited. Got some time off this summer to just be with the family, be with my fiance now. But other than that, excited to get back to training camp and get back to work.
All right, you opened the door right there. You got engaged recently here. I am very curious about this. You've planned touchdown celebrations. A lot goes into that. You planned a proposal. Looked like you were on a boat. What is harder, the perfect proposal or the perfect celebration?
I would definitely say the perfect proposal. A lot went into it, a lot of planning. So I'm glad, I think I executed it right. You'd have to ask her what she thinks, but I think it was amazing. We've been together for a while now, so I thought it was only right to do it. I felt like it was the right timing. I kind of planned out a whole day for her. So I think the execution went just as planned.
Yeah, finding a target in the end zone is one thing, but finding a person to spend the remainder of existence with is another. Congratulations again on that, Amon-Ra. So you mentioned Drew Petzing. We went through that spell last year, finishing the season with Dan Campbell calling the plays. What is the particular difference there in how things are executed and how planning is going to play out?
It's still early. I think Drew has great command of our offense right now. Just in OTAs, you're only doing so much in OTAs. You don't have pads on. You can't really run the ball. So it was a lot of passing that we were doing in OTAs, but that's a big part of the game. So honing in on that, the way he likes to do things, the way he likes to call certain plays, what brought some of his flavor from Arizona and where he's been to our offense. So I think it's going to be great. Once we get to training camp, we're going to be able to integrate more run game, more play action pass, and so I'm excited for it. Can't wait, and I think it's going to be great for all of us.
Amon-Ra, you've been in Detroit long enough to remember when 9-8 was like a banner season for the Lions. Last year, you're 9-8, and it's a disappointment. You missed the playoffs for the first time in several seasons. How long did it take you to get over the disappointment of last year? And what, if anything, gives you optimism you guys are going to be right back at the top of the mountain here?
Yeah, I think, after last season, I think we were all kind of disappointed. Once we found out we couldn't make the playoffs going into the last game, we were disappointed, but we weren't going to end the season on a low note. We were going to make sure we finished the season strong, and that's what we did versus Chicago. But I would say the whole offseason, I feel like a lot of us were, disappointed with the year we had, before. We feel like we have a pretty good team. And so going into the OTAs and, going into this training camp, I think the model for us is getting back to what we do. Nothing fancy, hard work, grit. And I think it just starts with out on the practice field, out in the meeting rooms, us as a team together, being who we are, and then, translating that onto Sundays.
And in terms of being who you are an integral part of that process of kind of changing the expectations for this franchise, both inside and out. What's the way that you communicate that to the new Lions, especially the young ones, the rookies?
I think for us, we got a lot of leaders on our team. I think a lot of guys that, do it the right way. And so for us, we don't need to change anything. We're going to be the guys that we continue to be. Me, Panay, Jared, Hutch. All the guys that, Jahmyr, J-Mo, Jack Campbell, the guys, Laporta, the guys that have been here for a while that understand how we do things. They're, we just continue to do what we do. I think the young guys just follow along. And so I think for us that have been here for a while, we just have to raise our standards, raise the way, what we did, because obviously last year wasn't good enough. So I think us as players, it's up to us. And I think the young guys will follow.
You've barely missed any time through your career. You've been really durable. You're obviously in great shape, even now a few weeks out from camp. Enough so you show up here with the muscle shirt to make us all look bad on this show. Just tell me about what, if anything, going into year 6, you're doing differently with your body and how you're kind of preparing yourself physically for a really long grind here.
Yeah, I would say I think, as I get older, I'm still young, but as I'm getting, more years in this league, taking more hits, I think, I train really hard in the offseason. I think maybe training a little less, make sure I'm preserving my body for the long season ahead. Because like I said, I'm a grinder. I feel like, in the offseason, I barely take any breaks. And so for me, it's like understanding that your body is your temple. Your body is, it's everything at the end of the day. It's what gets you going on Sunday. So for me, understanding when I need to turn it on and when I need to turn it off. And as you take more hits in this league and you go through little injuries, I think those things kind of add up and pile on. So for me, it's understanding when to go hard and maybe taking a little less, maybe doing a little less in the off season so that when I get to training camp, I'm full ramp and ready to go for the season.
Amon-Ra, one guy we don't want to take a little less at this point would be your teammate Jahmyr Gibbs, who is eyeing that potential deal. What types of communications have you had with him, and how do you think he's navigating this process?
I think he's doing great. Jahmyr's a guy that's not too focused on that. He's worried about having fun on Sundays, going out there and putting in the work with us during training camp, OTAs. I mean, he didn't miss any OTAs. He was there, all OTAs with us. He just loves the ball. So I think Jahmyr is not worried about that stuff. He's just worried about, how he can be best for the team. And he's done a great job of doing that. So, I'm sure everything's going to be worked out perfectly fine for him and his situation. So, like I said, I know he's not worried about that type of stuff.
At this point, you know what a Dan Campbell training camp is all about. It is crack of dawn practice. You guys are as physical. You hit as much as anybody in the NFL. The Week 1 game is 61 days away against the Saints. At what point do you kind of get over the crest of that hill and go from, man, we're putting a lot of work into, okay, I'm getting excited to play a real football game here?
I would say once training camp ends, I would say going into training camp, you're not worried about no opponent. You're not worried about who's Week 1, who's you're playing the preseason. The only thing you're worried about is making plays that day in practice and the next day and being the defense. So for us, man, I think Dan does a great job of keeping the players dialed in on what's, the task at hand. And for us, the task at hand will be training camp and beating the defense and the defense trying to beat us. And I think that's what makes, that competition in between our teams so great is we compete so hard during training camp that we feel like once we get to season, man, we put in so much work throughout throughout training camp and going against each other that now it's time to finally put, our talent on display.
Well, Amon-Ra, before you get off to that work and that process and trying to accomplish your team's goals, enjoy that little break, and thanks for spending that part of that break with us here on The Insiders.
Of course. Thank you for having me.